Welcome to the Talk Like a Leader podcast, where we explore the mindset, skill set, and habit set of leadership communication. Using these tips, techniques, and tactics, you'll be able to talk like a leader to build better relationships and get more done. Your host is Guy Harris, who has more than 20 years of combined professional and military experience in consulting, coaching, and training in areas like team and interaction dynamics, communication strategies and tactics, as well as emotional intelligence. Take it away, Guy.
Hi, this is Guy Harris. Welcome to the Talk Like a Leader podcast. This week's episode is titled Learn to Listen Accurately, and it's a follow-up to last week's episode, Learn to Speak Accurately. Few key points from last week. I talked about the idea of the difference between accuracy and precision, talked about the idea that accuracy is how close something comes to a standard of measurement, so when we speak accurately, it's how close we're coming to the intended message we want to send. And I made the point that while in measurement, accuracy and precision are basically two different things, meaning you could be accurate, hitting your, kind of averaging around your target, and not be very, very precise, meaning you don't come close to the target very often, so it's accurate but not precise. Or you could be both accurate and precise, meaning that you hit close to your target consistently so that the average of your shots hits your target. So there's, in measurement, in gunshots, in bow and arrow, in baseball, there are differences technically between accuracy and precision. And in communication, accuracy and precision get really close to being the same thing. I said that if you focus on being as accurate as possible, meaning describe what you see, hear, feel, perceive, as closely to reality as you possibly can, you'll probably also be precise. And then if you make that effort, you'll gain clarity, understanding, buy-in, agreement. Key point there was that if you learn to speak accurately, then you can speak in a way that neither overstates nor understates the problem that you're discussing. Well, the flip side of that is on how we receive messages or how we listen, and that's what I want to talk about this week. And it's a similar and very closely related idea. Listening accurately is about getting past your personal biases and filters so that you can really hear what the other person means to say rather than just the words they say. So I'll start with the key point and say that listening accurately is listening in a way that allows you to maintain your emotional control and awareness so that you neither overreact nor underreact to what people say, so that you can have that clear, accurate understanding of what the person is attempting to convey, even if they might be sloppy in how they do it. So here are three key things to think about. Now, I'm not going to say that this is the be-all, end-all discussion about listening accurately, and not even going to go into every single thing you could do to be a more effective listener. It's not the point. I just want to give you three quick things to consider as you're listening to others. And I will say that if you will follow these three suggestions, you will probably get closer to listening accurately. The first of these is to extend grace and forgiveness. The second is to do everything you can to hear it from their perspective. And the third is to ask good, clarifying questions. So let's start at the top. Extend grace and forgiveness. Remember that even highly skilled communicators will at times get sloppy in how they say things. Their body language will be off, their tone will be off, they'll pick not really the right word to say something. It's not the most accurate way to describe things. So be willing to extend grace and forgiveness and realize that even if the most skilled communicators don't always pull it off perfectly, honestly, the average person who doesn't invest the time that you invest in becoming a better communicator probably does it wrong from a purely analytical grammar analysis, word choice perspective, probably does it wrong frequently. And what you want to do from a leadership perspective is be willing to extend grace and forgiveness. And I heard a guy say one time that I'd rather hear a man say he's seen something when he actually saw something than hear a man say, I saw something when he ain't seen nothing. So the idea is to get past people's personal word choice and tone and any kind of misspeaking and extend grace and forgiveness. Cut them some slack is basically the idea. Don't expect other people to work to the level of accuracy you're trying to achieve in your personal speech patterns. Just give them some room to mess up. Don't let it throw you off your game. The second point is to hear it from their perspective. Now, the DISC model is a really good place to start. There are other things to consider for understanding another person's perspective. And our DISCpersonalitytesting.com blog is a place to get some information there. We've got podcast episodes on that. My personal blog, recoveringengineer.com, has articles and videos on the DISC model. So that's a place to start for understanding another person's perspective. And the idea is to do everything you can to hear what people are saying from the perspective they offer it, as opposed to hearing it from your perspective. And remember that you can honor another person's perspective, even if you don't agree with it. Maybe you would say it differently or you perceive it differently. You can at least honor that they do see it that way. And then if there's a difference in the way you perceive or see things, you want to do everything you can to avoid the temptation to correct or improve their word choice to improve their accuracy. For example, if you're interacting with someone and they're in a highly emotionally charged state and they say, well, everyone thinks this, be careful with asking a question like, did everyone agree or did someone agree? Probably some snarkiness would slip into your tone, and that kind of question is not likely to go well. So avoid the temptation to correct or improve their accuracy. Just listen to what they're saying and try to filter it through what you believe their intent is rather than the precise words they used. And part of the idea of hearing it from perspective and honoring their perspective gets to the idea that if you're interacting with a person as a completely different perspective from yours, let's say that you happen to be a very relational person and you're engaging with a person who doesn't have that as a primary driver, and they engage with you in a very task-oriented perspective, meaning they're driving towards the point, trying to get results. Try to hear it through the filter of a person who's trying to get results rather than hearing it through the filter of a person who's focused on strength and nature of the relationship. Not arguing that either of them is the right or wrong perspective, just really realizing that different people bring to the table different primary viewpoints. You want to try to make room for that in your communication if you want to hear accurately. You want to hear what they're saying and not really get hung up in the words they're using. And then you also want to ask clarifying questions because it's inevitable that you won't hear exactly what they mean. You'll misinterpret a word. You'll think they said one thing when they meant another. It's going to happen. And when you ask clarifying questions, you want to avoid saying things that are more statements than questions. Things like, well, here's what you said, or this is what you think. Saying what a person said or thinks is not really a question. It's a statement. And reminding you that you want to honor their perspective. We're trying to understand the viewpoint they're bringing so we can have a fuller, richer perspective of what they're really attempting to say, even if their words don't to you mean what they're trying to say. So here's some suggestions on how to ask clarifying questions. This, by the way, is a topic in and of itself. Just 3 quick suggestions on some ways that you could attempt to bridge the gap or that you're bringing accurately what another person says so that you can make sure you're listening accurately. You can say things like, well, here's what I heard, and then maybe ask a question after that. Did I hear that right? Another way to do it would be something like, well, is blank, and then you fill in the blank there, is blank what you meant? Or I understood that to mean blank. Did I hear that right? Or is that what you meant? Another way to say it is, well, it sounds to me like maybe this is your perspective, or it sounds to me like this is your concern. So you're verbalizing it in a questioning sort of way. You might end that up with, well, it sounds to me like your concern is X. Did I get that right? Am I understanding that correctly? The idea is to ask clarifying questions so that if there's a disconnect in the way they say it or the terminology they use or the way they apply a word to a different situation, you're making room for clarification. It's kind of an application of the extend grace and forgiveness idea. I want to hold back my judgment of what the person said until I fully understand what they said. So I'm trying to make room for that. So I'm trying to listen accurately. Let me get back to another idea to consider is that you want to be listening with your eyes as much as you are with your ears. I mean, you're paying attention to body language and you're listening for tone and you're trying to put the context clues together. And then when you're looking at body language, you might also ask clarifying questions around body language to make sure you're reading it right. You might be careful with this, by the way. This is going to take a highly trusting relationship before you can go there. In some situations, you can do this. You might ask, hey, that pointing of your hand looks like you're maybe kind of angry. Am I reading that the right way? Just be careful, because it could be perceived as a judgment there. Certain situations, it can be helpful to help you understand really what the person is saying or what they're feeling. And get back to the key point. Listening accurately allows you to maintain your emotional control so that you don't get triggered and emotional and angry and do anything that contributes to miscommunication. Listening accurately allows you to maintain emotional control and awareness so that you don't overreact or underreact to what other people say. So if you'll focus on listening accurately as much as you focus on speaking accurately, you can talk like a leader. This has been the Talk Like a Leader podcast. You can listen to this show every week wherever you get your podcast. If you haven't, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm Guy Harris, and thanks for listening.